The office was bustling, but Jordan felt like the world had slowed to a crawl. The announcement came out of nowhere. A promotion. For a moment, Jordan couldn't breathe, caught off guard by the rush of emotions. They had been working tirelessly, but a sense of disbelief crept in. They looked around, half expecting someone to laugh and reveal it was a joke. But no, it was real. The congratulations flowed in, but behind every smile, Jordan couldn't shake the gnawing feeling that something was off. Sam had been unusually quiet, their eyes betraying a flicker of something Jordan couldn't quite place. The two had always been close, almost like family, but today something felt different. It wasn't just the promotion that stirred this discomfort. It was the feeling of being watched, of being silently judged. Jordan tried to push the feeling away, brushing off the unease, but it lingered like an uninvited guest. The world seemed to be in sharp contrast, everyone's excitement versus their growing doubt. Jordan glanced at Sam again, noticing their tight-lipped smile. Something was brewing beneath the surface, and they couldn't help but wonder if their best friend was genuinely happy for them, or if it was all just a facade. Congratulations felt hollow. As Jordan made their way back to their desk, the rush of excitement faded, replaced by an unsettling emptiness. The promotion that should have felt like a triumph now felt more like a heavy burden. With every congratulatory pat on the back, a knot formed in their stomach. Sam was still distant, now fully absorbed in conversation with other colleagues. The friendly banter felt forced to Jordan, and every word spoken in their direction seemed laced with a hidden meaning. Kara, another colleague, came over to congratulate Jordan, but her smile didn't quite reach her eyes. Jordan's instincts were telling them something wasn't right. The office, normally a place of routine and camaraderie, felt foreign and suffocating. As Jordan sat back at their desk, they glanced around, seeing the subtle shifts in posture, the hurried whispers behind their back, and the coldness in the air. What was supposed to be a time for celebration had instead set the stage for something darker. Jordan's gaze flickered nervously between their screen and Sam's increasingly cold demeanor. The air between them was thick, palpable, but neither spoke. Sam's smile was now thin, more strained than ever before. They had always been there for Jordan, through thick and thin. But today, it was as if the foundation of their friendship had cracked, leaving only the weight of unspoken tension. The office chatter faded as Jordan's mind raced, replaying moments when Sam's words had seemed a little too cutting or their support just a little too insincere. Could Sam have been working behind the scenes to sabotage them? Thought felt like a betrayal in itself, and yet the pieces were starting to fall into place. Jordan had been too focused on the promotion to notice the subtle cracks forming in their friendship, but now everything felt different. Was it jealousy, resentment, or something more? It was hard to tell, but one thing was for sure. Sam wasn't the friend they thought they were. Jordan's thoughts were a whirlwind, each passing minute intensifying their feelings of betrayal. They couldn't shake the feeling that Sam's coolness wasn't just about the promotion. There was something deeper, something more personal. Had Sam been playing a game all along, pretending to be their biggest supporter while secretly plotting against them? As Jordan made their way to the break room, the weight of the situation pressed down on them. They could hear the murmur of voices behind them, but the further they walked, the more the office felt like a maze of lies. Jordan had always considered Sam their closest friend, the one they could trust above all others. The thought of betrayal from them was unbearable. Sitting at the break room table, Jordan tried to steady their breath, but their mind raced. Should they confront Sam now, or wait for the right moment? Every instinct told them that Sam's behavior wasn't a coincidence, but the fear of losing their closest friend was overwhelming. Jordan had spent hours contemplating the situation, but the more they thought about it, the clearer it became. They couldn't ignore the red flags any longer. There had been too many subtle signs of manipulation. Too many times Sam had been just a little too helpful, a little too eager to support Jordan's ideas, only to claim credit later. The promotion was the final straw. What had started as a simple job rivalry now seemed like something much darker. Diane, the office manager, had stopped by earlier to check on Jordan, giving them an almost pitying look. Jordan's gut told them that Diane knew more than she was letting on. But asking her directly wasn't an option. The only choice left was to confront Sam to demand the truth. Jordan was done being played. Thought of standing up for themselves gave them a sense of power, but also fear. Could they really face the truth if it was worse than they imagined? The days after the promotion announcement passed slowly, each one heavier than the last. Jordan found themselves caught in a whirlwind of emotions: confusion, anger, and an ever-present sense of dread. Sam's behavior only grew colder, and their attempts to act as though nothing had changed felt like a mockery. Every time Jordan tried to engage in a normal conversation, Sam's responses were clipped, their eyes avoiding direct contact. It was as if Sam were actively pushing Jordan away. The weight of the unspoken words hung in the air between them, thick with the tension that neither was willing to address. Colleagues, though still cordial, seemed to grow more distant, the air now charged with the awkwardness that surrounded Jordan. There were moments when Jordan felt the eyes of others on them, moments when they sensed the whispers behind their back. It wasn't just Sam anymore. It was everyone. The feeling of being an outsider in a place they'd once felt comfortable gnawed at their soul. Something was brewing beneath the surface, and Jordan wasn't sure if they were prepared for what would come next. The tension reached a breaking point when Jordan overheard a conversation between Sam and Kara, another colleague. It was subtle at first, an offhand comment made just loud enough for Jordan to hear. Sam had been discussing how Jordan wasn't ready for the responsibility, and how it is only a matter of time before they crack under pressure. The words hit Jordan like a physical blow, leaving them frozen in place. They had thought they were imagining things, that perhaps their suspicions had been overblown. But now, hearing Sam's true thoughts confirmed what Jordan had feared all along. Their promotion had been a source of resentment, not pride, for their best friend. The feeling of betrayal washed over them like a tidal wave. The world around Jordan blurred as they tried to process the full weight of what they had just heard. Sam wasn't just upset about the promotion. They were actively undermining Jordan, sabotaging their chances. The anger and hurt were almost too much to bear, but Jordan knew they couldn't back down now. The truth had to come out, no matter how painful it was. Jordan spent the rest of the day in a daze, unable to focus on their work. The conversation they had overheard played in a loop in their mind, each repetition deepening the sting. Sam had always been there for them, their closest ally in the office, but now it felt as though the ground had shifted beneath them. The more Jordan thought about it, the clearer it became that Sam's actions were calculated, not accidental. They had been undermining Jordan for weeks, if not months. The realization was devastating. The person Jordan had trusted most was the one tearing them down. They couldn't help but wonder if all the late-night chats, the inside jokes, and the moments of shared vulnerability had been nothing more than a facade. The idea that their promotion had been a pawn in a bigger game, something to bring them down rather than lift them up, left Jordan feeling betrayed in a way they couldn't articulate. They had always believed in Sam, but now they weren't sure if they even knew them at all. By the end of the week, Jordan couldn't ignore the growing hostility anymore. Sam's behavior became even more obvious: passive-aggressive comments, subtle jabs, and the complete withdrawal of any support. It was clear to everyone, except Jordan, that Sam was no longer their ally. The once close bond between them had been replaced by an invisible wall. At first, Jordan tried to reason with Sam, but each conversation ended in frustration and confusion. Sam would always deflect, acting as though nothing was wrong. But the coldness in their eyes told a different story. Jordan's colleagues began to notice the shift, some offering sympathetic glances, while others remained silent, too afraid to get involved. The office, once a place of camaraderie, now felt like a battlefield, and Jordan had no idea how to navigate it. They had to confront Sam, but the idea of doing so terrified them. Could they fix what was broken, or was it too late? The breaking point came one Friday afternoon. After a series of tense interactions, Jordan finally confronted Sam in the break room. The words spilled out before they could stop them. The hurt, the betrayal, the unanswered questions. Sam stood there, silent, as Jordan's words filled the room. When the silence finally broke, Sam's response was cold, defensive. They tried to justify their actions, claiming it was all in Jordan's head, that they had done nothing wrong. But Jordan could see the truth in Sam's eyes. The guilt, the resentment, the manipulation. The confrontation left them both raw. The emotional scars laid bare. Jordan didn't expect reconciliation, but the finality of it felt like a punch to the gut. Sam's words were sharp and venomous, accusing Jordan of being too sensitive, too quick to judge. The conversation ended with Jordan walking away, their heart heavy with the weight of everything they had learned. The friendship they had once cherished was now a shattered reflection of its former self. The aftermath of the confrontation weighed heavily on Jordan's shoulders. The days that followed were filled with an almost suffocating silence. The office seemed more like a prison than a workplace. Every interaction with Sam was now a reminder of the betrayal, and the people Jordan once considered friends were now distant figures in the background. Their mind raced as they pieced together every moment, every gesture that had seemed off, things they had ignored before, but now felt impossible to overlook. Sam's undermining wasn't just limited to the promotion. Jordan began to see how Sam had subtly sabotaged their relationships with other colleagues too. Small remarks, whispered words, and quiet gestures had all served to erode Jordan's standing in the office. They had been played, and the realization stung with the clarity of 1,000 cuts. But Jordan couldn't let it slide. They couldn't allow Sam to get away with it. But what could they do now? Every move felt like a trap, every word a potential weapon. Confrontation was inevitable, but how could Jordan bring themselves to fight for something that had already been broken? Jordan spent hours trying to make sense of the puzzle pieces scattered in their mind. Sam's sabotage had been subtle, almost imperceptible. But now it was clear. Jordan's confidence had been chipped away piece by piece, and they hadn't even realized it until it was too late. The most painful part of the whole ordeal wasn't just the betrayal itself. It was how deep it had run. Sam had been the person Jordan trusted most, the one they confided in, the one they thought understood them better than anyone else. Now, Jordan felt foolish. They had been blind to the manipulation, too caught up in the comfort of a false sense of security. It was hard to believe that someone they had considered a best friend could be capable of such calculated deceit. The anger was palpable, simmering beneath the surface. But it wasn't just anger that drove Jordan now. It was the desire for clarity. They needed answers. They needed to understand what had happened, why Sam had chosen to destroy their friendship, and if there was any chance of salvaging what had been lost. The confrontation wasn't just about closure. It was about reclaiming what they had lost, even if it meant facing the ugly truth. The weight of the truth became heavier with each passing day. Jordan's interactions with Sam were now curt, filled with tension, but Sam remained indifferent, deflecting every attempt at conversation. The silence between them was suffocating, a chasm that neither of them could bridge. Jordan began to notice things they had missed before. Sam's frequent late arrivals to meetings, their subtle undermining of Jordan's ideas, the way they would throw out a vague remark that would make Jordan question their own decisions. It was like watching a shadow dance on the edge of their vision, always there but never fully visible. Jordan knew now that this wasn't a one-time thing. Sam had been working against them for months, planting seeds of doubt in their mind, manipulating others to question their abilities. Every day felt like a constant battle, not just with Sam, but with their own insecurities. Doubt had been planted, and now it was taking root. Jordan didn't know how to undo the damage, but they were determined to try. The truth had been exposed, and now Jordan had to find the strength to face the consequences of what they knew. The confrontation was inevitable. Jordan couldn't stay silent any longer. They needed to understand why Sam had done this, why their friend had chosen to tear down everything they had built together. Jordan found Sam alone in the break room, their posture tense, eyes avoiding contact. The room felt suffocating as Jordan walked in, heart pounding in their chest. The words they had rehearsed seemed to vanish as soon as Sam looked up, their expression a mix of guilt and defiance. The conversation was raw, emotions spilling over. Sam didn't deny what they had done, but their justification was hollow. It wasn't about the promotion, they claimed. It was about the office dynamic. The desire to be in control, to hold the power. Sam admitted to manipulating situations, but it wasn't enough to make sense of the betrayal. The truth came out in jagged pieces, but it wasn't the answer Jordan had hoped for. The sense of betrayal was deepened, leaving Jordan feeling like an outsider in their own life. Sam's words didn't comfort them, they only deepened the wound. After the confrontation, the world seemed to tilt on its axis. Jordan didn't know what to feel anymore. The friendship that had once been their anchor was now a broken shell, something that could never be repaired. The office felt like a war zone, with every interaction tainted by the knowledge of what had been said. Jordan had no intention of returning to the way things were. Sam's betrayal had shattered any semblance of trust. Yet, the weight of it all still clung to them, a constant reminder of what had been lost. Jordan knew that the only way forward was to leave it behind, to rebuild from the ashes of the friendship. But how could they move on when the ghost of Sam's betrayal lingered, like a shadow cast over their every step? The road ahead felt uncertain, but one thing was clear: it was time to let go. The days following the confrontation felt like a slow descent into uncertainty. Jordan tried to bury themselves in work, but the unresolved emotions lingered. Sam's presence in the office felt suffocating, their passive-aggressive remarks a constant sting. Colleagues treated Jordan with a mixture of sympathy and wariness, unsure of where they stood. Every interaction felt awkward, like the unspoken tension was suffocating them. Jordan knew Sam wouldn't stay silent for long. The uneasy peace in the office was deceptive. Something was brewing, and Jordan couldn't escape the feeling that another confrontation was imminent. Sam finally approached Jordan one afternoon. There was no apology, no acknowledgement. Instead, Sam accused Jordan of being overly sensitive, blowing things out of proportion. The words cut deep, each one a calculated move to regain control. Sam dismissed the promotion as irrelevant, claiming it was Jordan's inability to understand office dynamics. Jordan's anger flared, but they stayed calm, realizing Sam was playing a game, trying to manipulate the narrative. This was not about fixing things, but about power. Sam was not done yet, and neither was Jordan. The doubts started to creep in. Was Jordan wrong? Were Sam's actions a misunderstanding, or had they truly been manipulated? The weight of it all grew, and Jordan found themselves questioning their own judgment. The office now felt like a battleground, with every colleague avoiding them. Doubt gnawed at their confidence, but they couldn't let it consume them. Jordan knew they needed to stand their ground, even though everything around them seemed to be falling apart. The emotional toll was heavy, but they wouldn't let it break them. Jordan decided it was time to take control. They gathered all the evidence, emails, records, and moments of sabotage, determined to confront Sam with the truth. Each piece of paper felt like a step toward regaining power. Jordan couldn't let Sam get away with manipulating their career any longer. This was no longer about being right. It was about standing up for themselves. Jordan wasn't going to let this silent war continue. They were ready for the next confrontation, and this time it would be on their terms. The moment had arrived. Jordan stood before the HR director, the evidence laid out in front of them. Their heart raced, but they spoke with clarity, recounting everything they had endured. The director listened, their expression unreadable, but the shift in their eyes told Jordan they had made an impact. Sam's actions were laid bare, and Jordan knew they couldn't undo the damage, but they could expose the truth. The director promised to look into it, but Jordan couldn't shake the feeling that this was just the beginning of a much bigger fight. The week after Jordan's meeting with HR was filled with a mixture of nervous anticipation and growing dread. The office buzzed with whispers, but Jordan could only focus on the looming uncertainty. The HR director had promised an investigation, but there was no guarantee that Sam would face consequences. Jordan kept their head down, trying to focus on their work, but the tension in the air was palpable. Everyone seemed to know that something was off, and the glances thrown in Jordan's direction were full of unspoken questions. Sam had been uncharacteristically quiet, which made Jordan nervous. What was Sam planning next? Jordan could sense that the calm was only temporary, that something bigger was brewing behind closed doors. But Jordan refused to be intimidated. This fight wasn't just for their career, it was for their peace of mind. They had no choice but to press forward and face whatever came next. Jordan's fears were confirmed when they overheard a conversation between Sam and a senior manager. The words were unmistakable. Sam had already started spinning the narrative in their favor. They were painting Jordan as someone who was too emotional, too unstable to handle the promotion. It wasn't just about the promotion anymore. Sam had turned the whole office against Jordan, portraying them as the problem. The anger burned through Jordan, but it wasn't just anger anymore. It was the crushing realization that Sam's manipulation had gone deeper than they had imagined. This wasn't just a personal betrayal, it was a full-blown campaign to destroy Jordan's reputation. The sense of betrayal was overwhelming, but Jordan couldn't let it show. They had to remain calm, composed, and ready for whatever came next. Jordan knew that they couldn't let this continue. They couldn't just sit back and allow Sam to ruin their reputation. The next day, they marched into HR once again, this time with new evidence. The manipulation wasn't just a rumor anymore. It was clear, undeniable, and documented. Jordan's heart raced as they laid out the evidence. Emails, conversation records, and witness accounts. They had everything they needed to prove Sam's campaign of sabotage. As Jordan spoke, they felt the weight of their words, but also a growing sense of clarity. This wasn't just about confronting Sam, it was about taking control of their own narrative. No one else would define them. The meeting ended with the HR director promising swift action, but Jordan knew the battle was far from over. Sam had already shown their hand, and Jordan had no intention of backing down now. The investigation moved quickly, but Jordan's sense of unease grew with each passing day. They were called into another meeting, this time with Sam present. The atmosphere was thick with tension. Sam's eyes were cold, their face a mask of calm. But Jordan could sense the fury simmering beneath the surface. The HR director spoke first, outlining the evidence, but Sam refused to acknowledge any wrongdoing. Instead, they blamed Jordan for being too sensitive and misinterpreting the situation. The conversation spiraled into a battle of words, with Jordan remaining composed, but inside, they were boiling. The realization hit them. Sam wasn't going to back down. This wouldn't be easy. But Jordan knew they couldn't let this go. The stakes were too high now, and they were prepared to fight, no matter how ugly it got. In the days following the meeting, things were quieter in the office, but Jordan could feel the undercurrents of tension still running deep. The investigation was ongoing, but Sam had already started to make their move, rallying support from some colleagues who were still loyal to them. The battle was far from over. Jordan's reputation had been damaged, but they refused to let that define them. The whispers were growing louder, but Jordan held their head high, knowing that they were doing the right thing. They didn't need validation from anyone else. Sam's manipulation would not succeed. Jordan had come too far to give up now. The fight was personal, but it was also about proving that they could rise above the chaos and reclaim their position. The road ahead was uncertain, but for the first time in weeks, Jordan felt a spark of hope. This was their moment, and they were going to take it. The days after the meeting with HR were heavy with anticipation. Jordan kept their distance from Sam, who had grown even more distant and hostile. Despite the ongoing investigation, Jordan couldn't shake the feeling that they were walking a tightrope. The office felt like a pressure cooker, with tension bubbling just beneath the surface. Sam's silent retaliation was just as dangerous as any overt attack. Jordan knew that something had to give. The situation couldn't stay in this uneasy limbo forever. Every day brought a new challenge, whispered rumors, stolen glances, and the occasional passive-aggressive remark. Jordan felt more like an outsider than ever. But they knew they couldn't let this consume them. The investigation would run its course, but Jordan had to find a way to stay grounded, to not let Sam's manipulation take over their life. The stakes were higher now, but so was Jordan's resolve. Jordan's quiet determination was tested when Sam made a direct move. One afternoon, Sam cornered Jordan in the hallway, their face a mask of icy calm. "You think you've won," Sam sneered, "but this is far from over." The words hit like a slap, but Jordan didn't flinch. They had expected this. Sam wasn't going to go down without a fight. Sam tried to twist the narrative once more, accusing Jordan of making things personal, of using the HR meeting as a weapon. But Jordan could see through it now. Sam's anger wasn't just about the promotion. It was about control, about power. And Jordan had taken that power back. The confrontation was brief, but it solidified Jordan's resolve. They had no intention of backing down, no matter what Sam threw at them next. This was the final battle, and Jordan wasn't going to lose. The confrontation with Sam left Jordan shaken but more determined. They had been right all along. Sam wasn't going to accept defeat quietly. But Jordan had no choice but to move forward. The investigation into Sam's actions was still ongoing, but there was no telling how long it would take. Jordan didn't have time to wait. They knew they had to act. So they began to strategize. They would take control of the situation on their terms, making sure that the truth about Sam's actions was known. It wasn't just about proving they were right anymore. It was about reclaiming their place in the office, about proving to themselves that they wouldn't let anyone manipulate or undermine them again. Jordan reached out to trusted colleagues, people who had seen Sam's behavior firsthand, and began building a case. They weren't going to let Sam win. Not this time. As the days went by, Jordan's efforts began to pay off. The evidence they had gathered became undeniable, and word started to spread that Sam's manipulation was more widespread than originally thought. The HR investigation moved faster, and it became clear that Sam would soon face consequences for their actions. Jordan continued to keep their head down, not wanting to attract more attention, but they could feel the shift. Colleagues who had once avoided them now started offering their support, acknowledging the strength it took to stand up to Sam. The atmosphere in the office was still tense, but Jordan could feel a subtle change. It was as if a weight had been lifted, if only just a little. Sam's power was starting to crumble, and with every passing day, Jordan felt more in control. They had taken their power back, and now they were prepared to face whatever came next. The final meeting with HR came sooner than expected. Jordan sat across from the HR director, the weight of the moment heavy in the air. The investigation had concluded, and the findings were clear. Sam's actions had been manipulative and damaging, and they would face disciplinary action. But as Jordan listened to the HR director explain the next steps, they realized something. This wasn't about punishment anymore. It wasn't about Sam's downfall. It was about Jordan's own growth, about reclaiming their power and their peace of mind. Jordan had fought not just for their career, but for their dignity. And now, as the meeting ended and the decision was made, Jordan felt a sense of calm wash over them. The battle had been hard, but they had emerged victorious. The road ahead was still uncertain, but for the first time in a long while, Jordan felt ready for it. They had taken control of their story, and nothing would take that away from them. The office felt quiet now, but Jordan couldn't ignore the weight of what had transpired. Sam was gone, but the scars of betrayal still lingered. The promotion that once felt like victory was now overshadowed by the emotional cost. Jordan had lost a friend, but in the end, they had gained something even more valuable: control over their own story. The respect from their colleagues was starting to return, but Jordan wasn't sure how to feel about it. They had been through so much, and now that it was over, the relief felt hollow. Still, the sense of clarity was undeniable. Jordan had faced the worst and emerged stronger. The journey wasn't over, but they had taken the first step toward healing. Jordan walked into the meeting room, and the shift was palpable. Colleagues who once avoided eye contact now acknowledged them with small nods of respect. It wasn't much, but it was enough. The whispers that had followed Jordan before had mostly quieted. Sam's absence was felt, but so was Jordan's new strength. It wasn't about the promotion anymore. It was about standing up for themselves and reclaiming their sense of purpose. The road ahead was still uncertain, but Jordan felt ready for whatever challenges lay ahead. They had proven they could endure, and now it was time to take back control of their narrative. The weeks that followed were filled with small victories. Jordan slowly rebuilt connections with their colleagues, the damage caused by Sam's manipulations slowly fading. They were no longer seen as the victim of a betrayal, but as someone who had fought through adversity. Each day, Jordan felt the weight of the past lifting, replaced by a sense of normalcy. The true victory wasn't in the office dynamics shifting, but in the personal growth Jordan had experienced. The promotion wasn't the prize anymore. The ability to stand tall, to rebuild trust, and to move forward was the real reward. One afternoon, Jordan's manager called them into their office, not to discuss performance, but to offer something unexpected. "We appreciate your resilience," they said. "You've handled everything with integrity, and it hasn't gone unnoticed." The words hit harder than Jordan expected. It wasn't just about the promotion. It was about who they had become. Jordan had proven their worth not just through their work, but through the strength they showed during the most difficult time of their career. Walking out of the meeting, Jordan felt a weight lift from their shoulders. The battle had taken its toll, but now they were finally at peace. As Jordan walked out of the office that evening, they felt the full weight of everything they had been through. The betrayal, the conflict, the emotional toll. It was all behind them now. Walking down the street, they felt a calm sense of relief. They had faced down the hardest challenge of their life and emerged stronger. The journey wasn't over, but Jordan had learned something important: the power to control their own story no matter what. They didn't know what the future held, but for the first time in a long time, they were ready for it.